Hey guys, Jacie West here coming at you with some pretty inconvenient truths. There is a big difference between empathy and understanding. I'm saying this because I'm assuming that if you clicked on this video, you're dealing with someone who might fall into the DSM's category of cluster B antisocial personality disorders, or at the very least, an emotionally unavailable individual. And if they're still in your life, you've probably seen bits and dabs of emotion, attention, and effort on their part. But empathy and understanding are two very different things. The truth is, somebody can watch you, examine your body language, your choice of words, how you interact with people, and the vulnerabilities you share with them, just to mirror that back to you. Why? Well, we unconsciously do this naturally because it creates rapport. We create a connection with someone. But when someone consciously does it, it's a manipulation tactic of sorts. They're trying to evoke trust because you're much more inclined to comply if you feel seen and understood. And they may very well understand you. What makes you tick, what calms you down, what to say to exactly trigger your complex PTSD. Because if you find yourself attracting these types of individuals, you definitely have some childhood trauma you need to work through and resolve. Other videos on that later. But they do this all from a calculated and logical state up here. Empathy, on the other hand, is a full body experience. One where you take on another person's worldview to the point where you feel the emotional quality of their perspective all throughout your body. You choose to step into their proverbial shoes and experience life through their filters of reality. Understanding is done from a dissociative state where you're analyzing and there is a clear divide between them versus you. Empathy is done from an associated position where you're quite literally taking on their emotional state. There's no difference from what they're feeling versus you. You can tell your partner you feel lonely in this relationship and list off 10 logical and rational things that they do or don't do to make you feel this way. And they can nod and rationally validate that, yeah, that would make you feel lonely. Maybe they even say they'll try to change. Always listen for the word try. Try is an NLP word that always implies failure. Heed Yoda on this one. But time passes, nothing has changed, and you still feel lonely. And that's because they understood you, but they didn't empathize. They might have even had the best intentions in that moment to change. But the problem is, they didn't sit there and allow themselves to feel what you are feeling. The loneliness, the abandonment. Because if they did and they truly loved you, that pain would be motivation enough for them to never let you feel that way again. We may think and want to believe that our actions and our decisions are 100% based on a rational, logical thought. But if that were true, all of us would be fit, productive members of society with only healthy and supportive relationships. But for the majority of us, that's unfortunately not true. We know logically these things would be good for us and provide us happiness, and for the most part, we know how to obtain them. So why not? Because the reality is, we make our decisions and take action based on about 90% emotion and 10% logical thought. If we don't attach an emotion to a thought or a promise to change, not only will it fail to encode into your long-term memory, you're about 90% less likely to take action if a reminder crosses your path. And here's the kicker. People who fall under the cluster B antisocial personality disorder spectrum or are just emotionally unavailable very rarely empathize, if not at all. And there's a multitude of reasons for this, but it usually boils down to these 3 points. 1, during their early years of development, nobody empathized with them. If they expressed an emotion, overexcitement, frustration, fear, sadness, parents or people in their environment might have ignored them, shamed them for feeling this way, or completely invalidated their emotional reality by disregarding it or trying to constantly change their emotions by words or force. Nobody regularly mirrored them in their critical years of personal and social development. And that leads us to point number 2. That type of interaction, or lack thereof, now leads a child to believe that emotions are something to be feared, something they can't trust, or a burden in regards to their desire for connection. And because we are completely socially dependent animals, if your parental godlike figures deemed these emotions or expressions as bad, your prefrontal cortex has not developed yet. So you have no ability to rationalize or see the situation as a whole. And you can only deem that as a child to mean that you are bad. But again, we're socially dependent animals, so we still need to get our needs for attention and affection met, right? And to do that, we know we have to be good. So what happens now? The child very quickly learns to disassociate from their emotions and quite literally create a disconnect, a wall separating their thoughts from their emotional body. And if they find it difficult to deal with their own emotions, no way in hell are they gonna buy a ticket to jump on the ride to experience yours. And point number 3, why they don't or won't empathize. They are a born and raised psychopath. It's only about 1% of the population, but it's a possibility. And if you're interested in the exact differences between a sociopath, psychopath, and narcissist, well, I have another video of that for you. But the next question I often get asked by my clients is, how do I get my man to empathize? Because statistically, it's more often than not a man, due to the way that a male's brain biologically operates, as well as the tougher social stigma we put on boys on expressing their emotions. Oh yeah, if you like this type of content, like and subscribe. And if you don't, hit that little bell icon down below, because surely I'll come out with a video in the future that you will like, right? Little location change, because a bunch of commotion just started going on inside, so where was I? Right now, let me just tell you this. I can send you links to books and videos on how to psychologically manipulate your man into feeling. But I'm just gonna give it to you straight. You don't. Especially if they fall into the cluster B, antisocial personality spectrum. Save your breath. Save your time. By this point, I'm going to already assume that you've had a conversation, or 10, about how you feel or opening up, and it has gotten you nowhere. I can tell you why real quick. Subconsciously, they're projecting their never satisfied or emotionally neglectful parent on you. And everything you say that makes them feel bad or triggers an emotion that they felt as a child will only build their walls that much thicker. Remember, those walls were built because they were taught that their emotions, their vulnerabilities, excited outbursts were bad. And now you're telling them that this suppressed version of themselves is still not good enough? Well, good job. Not only have you just compounded the emotional wound further, but they have now associated you with the feeling of discomfort. And what do the emotionally unavailable do with uncomfortable feelings? They reject, suppress, and avoid. They'll disengage from you, which will cause you anxiety and make you pull them closer. And then they'll push away, you'll pull closer, they'll push away, you'll pull closer, they'll push away until one of you gets so fed up and annoyed that you either leave or find somebody new. That's the average outcome. Worst case scenario, they retaliate. They tarnish your possessions, your reputation, and take out their frustrations on their own personal truths on you. Know the devil you're dealing with. But I'm curious. Comment down below if you know a devil and what you did to deal with it. Because as far as I've seen in the psychological literature states, people don't typically have a drastic personality transformation unless something drastic happens in their lives that forces them to go inside and do some self-investigation and reflection. the loss of a loved one, a major life-threatening illness, or some type of spiritual awakening of some kind. Maybe through mind-altering substances? You know what's not on that list? You. People don't change their ingrained habits for others. They'll only ever change for themselves. Take the show Intervention as an example. Family members have pled their case over and over again with the addicts in their lives to stop, to change, to quit. But it's not until everyone pulls together and decides to cut ties completely does the addict even sometimes have a desire to change or attempts to change. Why? Because they're on the brink of losing their loved ones, their support system. Now, I give you that analogy with a great risk, because dealing with someone with a cluster B personality disorder is not the same as dealing with an addict. So the loss of you might not be a big enough loss for them to look inward. But if you're not feeling respected or valued by somebody, I encourage you to make that your next step. It sucks. I know. And if you need further convincing, let me just break it down for you in the best way I know how. You can only ever love someone to the extent that you love yourself. Now, I know you probably heard this before, it's cheesy, but what does it really mean? To love something or to love someone is to take them as a part of yourself, their needs, their wants, their reality, their internal world, their internal landscape is just as important and just as valid as your own. Okay, so with that definition, what does it mean then to love yourself? You have to take ownership and accept all, and I mean all, aspects of yourself. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The really ugly. That stuff too. And to do that, that requires a lot of internal investigation and self-reflection. Something that emotionally unavailable people have been running from and disassociating from for years. So I leave you with this. Do you seriously expect somebody who doesn't care about their own internal world to ever give two shits about yours? Create a great week.